You know, sometimes late at night when the world gets quiet and there's no one left to impress, we start wondering, who am I really? We look in the mirror and see a face that's changed over the years, but somehow it still feels like me. We remember moments, laughter, pain, love, and we string them together into a story we call My Life. But here's the thing. What if that story isn't as solid as it seems? What if the me we protect, defend, and identify with is more like a ripple in a pond, real for a moment, but always moving, never the same twice? Maybe you felt it too, that strange sense that something inside you is watching, thinking, feeling. We all have. But tonight, let's take a quiet walk through that feeling. Let's explore what it really means to exist, to change, and maybe to let go just a little. And hey, before we go deeper, if you find something in these talks that touches you, something that makes you pause and breathe differently, feel free to subscribe, not for numbers or algorithms, but just so we can keep walking this path together. When the Buddha spoke about life, he didn't talk about a soul trapped inside a body or a permanent self that survives forever. He said something softer, something that feels closer to what we all see every day. He said that what we call a person isn't one solid thing. It's a process, a flow, like a river that never stops moving. And when you think about it, that's kind of beautiful. Everything that makes you you, your body, your feelings, your thoughts, the way you remember and react, it's all changing constantly. You wake up different each morning, even if you don't notice it. Your skin, your habits, your emotions, they're shifting like clouds. Maybe that's why life feels both fragile and alive at the same time. The Buddha described this movement through what he called the 5 parts of being. Don't worry about the words. Just imagine it. First, there's the body, this physical form that carries us through the world. It gets tired. It gets hungry. It grows. It fades. Then there are feelings, the tiny sparks that tell us this is nice or this hurts. After that comes perception, the part of us that says, that's a tree or that's someone I love. Then come our habits and thoughts, the choices we make, the reactions we repeat, the little loops of mind that keep spinning. And finally, there's awareness, the quiet witness inside, the part that experiences it all. Together, these pieces make up what we call me. But here's the quiet truth. None of these parts stay the same. They rise and fall moment by moment like waves. And if they're all changing, can any of them really be you? Maybe not in the way we usually think. When you stop and notice your mind for just a second, you can see it, thoughts coming and going, feelings shifting, sensations flickering. It's all happening right now. And maybe that's the beginning of peace. Not trying to hold on to what's moving, but learning to flow with it. I remember once sitting by the ocean at dusk. The sky was pink and gold, and the waves kept coming, each one different, but all part of the same sea. And I thought, maybe that's what we are. We're waves that think we're separate from the ocean. We crash, we shine, we fade, but the water that makes us never leaves. Maybe the mistake isn't that we change, but that we expect not to. The Buddha never asked people to believe him. He just asked them to look, to see for themselves. So, if you're listening right now, maybe try this. Next time you feel angry or afraid or proud, pause. Ask yourself, where is this feeling now? What's it made of? Does it stay the same? You might notice it shift, soften, disappear. And in that small moment, something inside you might whisper, oh, it was never really mine. That doesn't mean we stop being human, or that we float away from life. It just means we start seeing it more clearly. We realize that who we are isn't a fixed thing. It's a dance of moments, each one new, each one a chance to be free. Maybe that's what makes life so tender. Because if nothing lasts forever, then everything we love, every smile, every sunrise is a gift. And if we can see that, maybe we stop clinging so hard. Maybe we start loving more gently. So, when you look in the mirror tomorrow, try this. Don't just see a face. See the story of change written there. See the 1,000 versions of yourself that came before, all still flowing through you. And smile, because even if there's no permanent self, there's something even more miraculous, a life that keeps moving, learning, awakening. And if these reflections speak to something inside you, I'd love for you to stay. Subscribe, share a moment, breathe with me. Because this path of seeing clearly, of letting go, of simply being, isn't something we walk alone. It's something we remember together. There's something tender that happens when we start to look closely at this idea of no self. At first, it can sound almost cold, even frightening, like we're being told that we don't exist, that everything we love, all our memories and dreams, are somehow unreal. But that's not what the Buddha meant at all. He wasn't taking something away from us. He was giving us a way to stop suffering. Because the truth is, most of our pain doesn't come from what happens. It comes from the way we cling to it. We hold on to an image of who we think we are, who we were, or who we should be. And when life doesn't match that image, it hurts. Maybe you felt that sting when something ended, a relationship, a job, a dream, and it felt like you lost a piece of yourself. But think about it. To you, that's feeling that pain isn't the same you from 10 years ago. You've grown, you've changed, you've survived things you once thought you couldn't. So, if you've changed that much already, who's to say you aren't still changing now? Maybe the loss isn't the end. It's just another shift in the river. When the Buddha spoke of rebirth, he wasn't pointing to a soul that floats from one body to another like a traveler changing clothes. He was pointing to something subtler, something that happens in every moment, every thought we have, every word we speak, every action we take plants a seed. And those seeds don't just disappear, they bloom, sometimes right away, sometimes in ways we can't yet see. That's rebirth, too. The you that exists right now is the result of countless moments before this one. And the choices you make today, they'll shape who you'll become tomorrow. In that way, rebirth isn't about where you go after you die. It's about how you live while you're here. You might notice this even in a single day. One moment you're angry, the next you're laughing. One moment you feel lost, the next you feel clear again. Each emotion gives rise to another. Each thought gives birth to the next. That's life renewing itself moment by moment. There's no single, unchanging self underneath it all. Just this ongoing dance of causes and effects, of choices and echoes. And maybe that's not something to fear. Maybe it's something to soften into. Because if we're always being reborn, we're never truly stuck. You can start again, right here, right now. You can let the past version of yourself rest, like a leaf falling into the river, and trust that the current will carry you somewhere new. The Buddha's teaching was never about erasing who we are. It was about freeing us from the prison of taking it all too seriously. Think about it. If someone insults you and you take it deeply, it's usually because you think they're threatening your identity, your image, your pride. But if you can see that self as something fluid, not fixed, their words lose their power. You realize that's just a sound, just a passing feeling. You don't have to build a story around it. You can just breathe and let it move through you. That's the quiet strength of this path. It's not about believing or not believing. It's about noticing. It's about sitting quietly and watching your thoughts drift like clouds across the sky, without chasing them, without judging them. And little by little, you start to see that peace was never hiding somewhere else. It was underneath all along. So maybe tonight, when you close your eyes, you can whisper to yourself, it's okay to let go. Let go of who you think you have to be. Let go of the stories that keep replaying in your mind. Let go just enough to feel how light you truly are. And if these words feel like a gentle reminder, if they make you breathe a little softer, I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe, and let's keep finding stillness together. One story, one breath, one quiet moment at a time. You know, the more we look into this idea of rebirth, the more we realize it's not just something that happens after we die. It's happening right now, in every breath, every heartbeat, every small decision. We die a little each moment we let go of what we were, and we're born again each time we open to something new. Maybe that sounds poetic, but it's also deeply real. Think about the last time you forgave someone. The moment before forgiveness, your heart was heavy, closed off. The moment after, something inside you felt lighter, softer, more alive. That's a kind of rebirth, isn't it? Not of the body, but of the heart. Buddhism invites us to see that nothing stays frozen. Our anger, our fear, our guilt, they all pass if we let them. But most of the time, we don't let them. We grab on tight, try and make the world match our stories. We say, I'm this kind of person, or this is who I am, and we carry that around like a badge. But maybe who we are is much bigger than that. Maybe it's the space in which all those versions of us appear and fade away. The Buddha once compared this to a candle flame. When you light one candle from another, the flame continues, but it's not the same flame. It's connected, but it's new. That's how life moves, moment to moment, person to person. So when people ask, if there's no self, who is reborn? The answer isn't simple, but it's beautiful. It's not someone that's reborn. It's a continuation of causes and conditions, the ripples of what we've thought, said, and done. It's like a melody being passed along. The notes change, but the song continues. And maybe that's where compassion comes in. Because if everything is connected like that, if my actions echo into others, and there's into me, then how could I ever wish harm on anyone? We're part of the same unfolding, the same stream. What I give, I receive. What I release, I free myself to. When we start to see the world this way, something inside us softens. Life stops feeling like a battlefield we have to conquer and starts feeling more like a dance. We don't need to control every step. We just learn to move with what comes. Maybe today brings sadness. Maybe tomorrow brings peace. Both are okay. Both belong. And when we understand rebirth in this quiet, natural way, we start to treat each moment as sacred. We realize we don't have to wait for another life to begin again. We can begin again right here. Maybe that means reaching out to someone we hurt. Maybe it means forgiving ourselves for something long past. Maybe it's just taking a deep breath and saying, it's okay, I can start over. You see, the heart of the Buddha's teaching isn't about escaping life. It's about fully living it without clinging, without fear. It's about waking up to the miracle that this moment, this simple breath, is already new. You've never been exactly this person before. You'll never be this person again. Isn't that amazing? So as we keep walking together through these reflections, I want you to remember, you're already changing ways you can't see yet. Every kind thought, every act of patience, every quiet letting go, it all shapes who you're becoming. It all adds light to the path. And if this way of seeing touches something in you, if it makes you breathe a little easier, I'd be grateful if you subscribed, so we can keep walking side by side through these gentle awakenings. because this isn't just a journey of ideas. It's a journey of the heart, and somehow we're already walking it together. There's a quiet moment that comes when you start to really sit with this truth, that life is always changing, and that who you are is not something you can hold in your hands. At first, it can feel a little unsettling, almost like standing on shifting sand. But if you stay there long enough, something unexpected begins to happen. You stop fighting the movement. You stop trying to make the river hold still. And in that letting go, you start to feel something deep in stability. You feel peace. You see, we spend so much of our lives trying to build a self that will last. We want to be remembered, respected, understood. We want to find our place in the world and keep it. But life has other plans. People change, memories fade, and everything we build eventually returns to dust. That might sound sad, but it's not meant to be, because in losing what's temporary, we start to discover what's timeless. The quiet awareness behind it all, the part that simply notices. When the Buddha spoke about the end of suffering, he wasn't talking about erasing life's problems or hiding from pain. He was pointing to a shift in perspective. Imagine sitting in a storm, not trying to stop the wind, not wishing for the sun, just watching the rain fall. At first, you feel cold, uncomfortable. But then, slowly, you realize that the storm isn't against you. It's just nature doing what nature does. That's what happens inside us, too. Thoughts, emotions, fears, they come and go like weather. And when we stop calling them mine, they lose their power to drown us. Maybe you've had a moment like that before, a time when you were hurting, but suddenly, in the middle of all that pain, you felt strangely calm. You didn't push the feeling away, but you didn't become it either. You just watched. That space, that quiet distance, that's freedom. That's awakening in its simplest form. It's not dramatic. It's gentle, almost whisper soft. And maybe that's what the Buddha meant all along. Enlightenment isn't some faraway state you have to chase. It's this awareness, right here, that sees without grasping, that allows everything to rise and fall. It's the peace that comes when you stop saying, "This shouldn't be happening," and start whispering, "It's okay. Let it be." When you see life that way, even the idea of death begins to soften. Because what is death if not another change, another transformation? The body fades, the breath stops, but the flow of cause and effect, the energy of kindness, of love, of wisdom, keeps moving. Maybe not in the way we imagine, but it never truly ends. The Buddha once said that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. So maybe death isn't an ending at all. Maybe it's just another beginning in a long story of becoming. And when we really feel that not as a belief, but as something deep in the bones, life becomes gentler. We stop needing everything to go our way. We stop holding grudges because we realize how short and precious our time is. We begin to forgive more easily, love more freely, and live with a kind of softness that doesn't come from weakness, but from understanding. So maybe the next time you find yourself clinging to a memory of fear or even a dream, you can pause, take a breath, and whisper, "It's okay to let go," because you're not losing yourself. You're just making space for the next version of you to be born. And if these thoughts bring you a little peace, if they help you breathe more deeply or see your life with gentler eyes, I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe, and let's keep walking this quiet path together. No rush, no pressure. Just two travelers learning to let go, to see clearly, and to be at home in the ever-changing beauty of this moment. There's something beautifully human about our need to hold on. We hold on to people, to dreams, to moments we wish could last forever. Maybe it's because deep down, we sense how quickly everything slips through our fingers. Time moves, faces age, memories fade, and yet we still reach out, hope and keep something. Anything just a little longer. But life has a way of teaching us, gently or sometimes painfully, that holding too tightly only makes it harder to breathe. I remember once sitting with an old man by the sea. He was quiet, watching the waves roll in and out. After a while, he said softly, "I used to fight the tide, but it never stopped coming. Now I just let it wash over me." That's the wisdom of letting go. It doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop fighting what's already changing. We learn to love without needing to possess, to give without expecting something back. The Buddha taught that suffering begins where attachment begins. But he didn't mean we should shut down or stop feeling. He meant the opposite. He wanted us to love fully, but without fear, to care deeply, but without trying to own what we care for. Because everything we love, our children, our partners, our dreams, they're all like sandcastles on the shore. Beautiful, temporary, shaped by our hands, and eventually return to the sea. When we understand that, we don't stop building. We just build with peace in our hearts. And maybe that's the quiet gift of impermanence. It teaches us how to cherish. When you know something won't last forever, you start paying attention. You listen closer. You hold softer. You say, "I love you," without waiting for the perfect moment. You stop rushing through the minutes because you realize every one of them is already a miracle. So often, we think peace means escaping the noise of life, but it's really about finding stillness within it. You can be in the middle of chaos and still be calm, because you understand that every emotion, every situation, is passing through like a breeze. Even pain, even loss, they come to teach, and then they go. Sometimes letting go isn't dramatic. It's just a deep breath. It's saying, "I can't control this, but I can choose how I meet it." It's deciding to stay kind, even when life isn't. It's forgiving yourself for being human, for breaking, for trying, for learning the hard way. And maybe that's what rebirth really means. Not just being born into another body, but being born into a new way of seeing. Every time we let go of bitterness, we're reborn. Every time we forgive, every time we choose love instead of fear, we're stepping into a new life. So if you're carrying something heavy right now, maybe tonight's the time to set it down. You don't have to throw it away or force yourself to forget. Just place it gently beside you, breathe, and whisper, "It's okay. I'm still here." Because that's where peace begins, not in running from pain, but in being kind to yourself while you walk through it. And if these words bring a little warmth to your heart, if they remind you that you're not alone in learning to let go, I hope you'll stay. Subscribe if you'd like to keep walking together. Each week, we'll keep exploring these quiet truths, not as lessons, but as shared reflections. Because in the end, that's what this is all about, remembering together that life doesn't need to be held to be beautiful. It just needs to be lived, moment by moment, breath by breath. There comes a point in this journey where we stop asking, "Who am I?" and start asking, "What is this?" This life, this breath, this moment that keeps unfolding before us. Because when you look closely, the self you were searching for dissolves into something much larger, something softer and endless. It's not that you disappear. It's that you finally see there was never a wall between you and the rest of life. The same wind that moves the trees moves your breath. The same light that warms the earth shines in your eyes. And in that quiet recognition, the world stops feeling like out there and start to feel like home. We spend so much of our lives building invisible walls. Me and you, right and wrong, mine and yours. But those walls only exist in thought. Beneath them, everything is already connected. The air you breathe was exhaled by the trees. The warmth on your skin traveled millions of miles from the sun. Even your body, this collection of bones and blood and stardust, is made of the same elements that live in the stars. Maybe that's why, when we sit in stillness, there's a strange sense of returning, not to something new, but to something ancient and familiar. The simple truth that we've never really been separate at all. The Buddha once said that clinging to the idea of a permanent self is like mistaking the reflection of the moon in a lake for the moon itself. The reflection is beautiful, but it's not the real thing. In the same way, our thoughts, our names, our roles, they shimmer on the surface, but they're not who we truly are. When we stop chasing the reflection, we can finally look up and see the real moon shining quietly above us. Maybe that's what awakening really means. Not some dramatic burst of enlightenment, but a gentle, steady seeing. A seeing that knows this too will pass, and yet loves it anyway. You start to realize that the point isn't to escape life, but to be fully alive in it, to hold joy without clinging to it and pain without drowning in it, to stand in the middle of the ever-changing world and whisper, yes, this too belongs. And when that understanding begins to settle in your heart, everything changes. Small things start to matter again. The sound of rain, the way sunlight moves across the floor, the warmth of a hand in yours. You begin to feel gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally see that nothing needs to be. Sometimes this shift comes quietly. Maybe one morning, you wake up and notice that the ache you carried for years feels lighter. Or you find yourself forgiving someone without meaning to. That's the mind awakening, moment by moment, like petals unfolding at dawn. And if you find peace in that thought, if you feel something inside you unclench, even just a little, I'd love for you to stay on this path with me. Subscribe, not because I have answers, but because we're both learning to listen to life in the same way, to its pauses, its silences, its whispers of truth. Because at the end of the day, this journey isn't about becoming something else. It's about remembering what you already are. Not a fixed self, not a story, but part of a vast and gentle movement that's been flowing since the beginning of time. And when you see that, really see it, you realize you were never lost. You were always home. There's something deeply beautiful about realizing that rebirth isn't just about what happens after death. It's happening right now, in every breath you take, in every thought that rises and fades away. The Buddha once said that life is a series of births and deaths, happening moment by moment. Every time you let go of a thought, every time a feeling passes through you, something dies. And every time you breathe in again or open your eyes to a new day, something is born. Maybe that's what rebirth really means. Not another lifetime far away, but this endless renewal that's been unfolding quietly inside you all along. Think about it. The person you were 5 years ago, even last week, isn't really here anymore. The way you think, the way you love, the way you hurt, it's all changed, hasn't it? And yet, here you are, still standing, still becoming. Maybe we've been reborn 1,000 times already, without even noticing. Every mistake we've forgiven, every tear that's dried, every time we chose kindness over anger, that's a kind of rebirth too. I remember meeting an old man once, sitting by the river at sunset. He told me that after his wife passed away, he thought his life was over. For months, he barely spoke. But then one morning, he noticed how the light touched the water, how the air felt soft again. That's when I knew, he said, I hadn't died with her. Something in me had just been sleeping. And when it woke, I realized I was alive again. His words stayed with me. Because that's what this teaching really is, a reminder that life keeps offering itself to us again and again, even when we forget how to receive it. So maybe the question isn't who is reborn, but what keeps being renewed. Every moment you let go of bitterness, every time you open your heart when it would be easy to close it, that's the mind being born again. That's life teaching itself to start over. You don't need to believe in a soul jumping from body to feel that truth. You can feel it right here, in the way your breath leaves your chest and returns, in the way your heart breaks and then slowly mends. And maybe in that simple rhythm of loss and renewal, we find something more real than any belief, a quiet peace that doesn't depend on forever. Because once you see that nothing lasts, you also see that everything matters. Each moment is both an ending and a beginning. Each breath is both death and birth. And that means you're never truly stuck, no matter where you've been or what's happened. If you've ever felt broken, remember, brokenness is just a space where light gets in. Rebirth isn't a promise for another lifetime. It's a gift that's waiting in this one, right here, right now. And if this touches something in you, if it makes you pause and breathe a little deeper, maybe subscribe to this channel. Not because you need more answers, but because sometimes it's comforting to walk this path together, to be reminded again and again that even when everything changes, it's okay. You're allowed to change too, because the truth is, you're already being reborn every single moment. You just have to notice it. Maybe what makes this whole teaching so quietly powerful is that it doesn't ask us to believe in something far away. It invites us to see what's right here, right now. Rebirth isn't just a story about where we go after we die. It's a mirror showing how we live. Each time we react with anger, we plant a seed. Each time we choose compassion instead, we plant another. Those seeds don't just shape our next life. They shape the next moment, the next breath, the next heartbeat. Karma isn't some mysterious force keeping score. It's simply the truth that what we nurture in our hearts grows stronger. I think about this sometimes when I'm alone in the early morning, before the world wakes up. The air feels new, like the day itself is being born. And I wonder, what if every moment of our life is like this morning? A small beginning, a quiet chance to start again. Maybe that's why the Buddha spoke about awareness as the key. Because when you're truly awake to what's happening inside you, you can stop the old patterns from dragging you into another round of suffering. You can see that your anger doesn't define you. Your pain doesn't own you. They just visit, and then if you let them, they pass. There's a story about a young monk who once asked his teacher, "Master, how can I know if I'm progressing on the path?" The teacher smiled and said, "When the same problem comes again, and you respond differently, that's rebirth in its truest form. Not the turning of worlds, but the soft turning of the heart, the ability to meet the same storm with more peace than before. The same pain, but this time with a little more understanding, a little more love." We tend to imagine change as something huge, a breakthrough, a transformation. But often it's just a whisper. It's the quiet moment. You notice you didn't react the way you used to. You paused instead of shouting. You forgave instead of closing off. Maybe no one else even noticed. But deep inside, something shifted. That's the mind renewing itself, shedding its old skin. That's karma being rewritten in real time. And if you think about it, this understanding is actually quite freeing. You don't have to wait for another life to start over. You can begin right now. You can breathe out the past and breathe in a new way of being. You can choose patience when the world feels too heavy, kindness when it feels undeserved, peace when it seems impossible. These aren't just moral choices. They're acts of rebirth. Maybe that's what the Buddha meant when he said the path is here, beneath our feet. We don't need to reach for heaven or escape this world to find freedom. It's already woven into the moments we live, into the space between each inhale and exhale. All we have to do is notice it. So if this message resonates with you, if you ever felt like life keeps giving you another chance to grow, to forgive, to begin again, then stay with me here. Subscribe if you haven't yet, not just to follow a channel, but to walk alongside a community of people learning to breathe through life together. Because this journey isn't about escaping what hurts. It's about learning to be present enough to let life transform us, one gentle rebirth at a time. You know, the more I think about it, the more I realize that rebirth isn't just a spiritual idea. It's something we live through every single day. It's in the way we heal after loss, in the way we find laughter again after pain, in the way our hearts open even after being broken. We die and come back to life 1,000 times in one lifetime. Maybe not in the dramatic sense, but in all those quiet, invisible ways that no one else can see. Every time you forgive someone who hurt you, that's a small death of your pride and a rebirth of your peace. Every time you let go of who you thought you had to be, something softer, truer, begins to breathe inside you again. I remember once sitting with a woman who had gone through so much loss, illness, disappointment. She said to me, "I used to think I had to rebuild my old life, but I see now that life was never meant to stay the same. Maybe the point isn't to rebuild, but to let myself be rebuilt." That sentence stayed with me because it's so true. Sometimes the universe doesn't give us back what we lost. It gives us something new, and it asks us to trust that it's still enough. When we stop clinging to what was, we start to notice what is, and what is can be so quietly beautiful. The way the sunlight hits the window, the taste of coffee in the morning, the laughter of someone you love, all of it becomes precious when you stop assuming it will last forever, because nothing does. And that's exactly why it matters so much. You see, that's what the teaching of no self and rebirth really gives us. It doesn't take life away. It gives it back in its purest form. When you understand that there's no permanent me, you stop trying so hard to defend yourself, to prove yourself, to hold everything together. You begin to relax. You begin to breathe. And in that breath, you discover something incredible. Peace isn't found in controlling life. It's found in allowing life to move through you. There's an old saying, you can't step into the same river twice. The water is always flowing, and so are you. Maybe the river is life itself, and we're just learning how to float instead of fight the current. Maybe that's a true freedom the Buddha was pointing to, not some faraway enlightenment, but this deep, gentle acceptance that everything changes, and that's okay. So, if you're listening right now, maybe just take a deep breath. Feel it move through you, rise and fall. That's rebirth. It's not something waiting in the next world. It's happening here in this inhale, this exhale, this moment that will never come again. And if this way of seeing life helps you feel a little lighter, a little more alive, I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe if you haven't already, not for lessons or doctrines, but for moments like this, for gentle reminders that you're allowed to let go, to start over, to live softly. Because every ending you faced, every change you survived was never a loss. It was life inviting you to be born again. And maybe, just maybe, that's what all of this really means. That you were never broken. You were just becoming. And maybe that's a quiet truth we've been circling around all along. That rebirth isn't about some distant future, not about flames and heavens or the turning of cosmic wheels. It's about this very moment, the one you're living in right now. Every breath, every heartbeat is a small resurrection. You don't need to wait for another life to begin again. You can begin again right here. You can close your eyes, exhale the weight you've been carrying, and let something new unfold in the space that's left behind. Because life at its core is always whispering. You can start over. No matter what you've lost, no matter what has ended, there's still something inside you that wants to live, to love, to try again. It's gentle, almost fragile, like the first light at dawn, but it's real. And that's the beautiful part. You don't have to fix everything or be anyone special. You just have to be willing to begin, even when it's hard, even when you're scared. Maybe that's what the Buddha was trying to show us, that freedom isn't about escaping the world, but opening our hearts to it. To understand that pain, joy, loss, and rebirth are not separate things, but threads of the same tapestry. When we stop running from change, we begin to see the grace inside it. When we stop asking, why me? And start whispering, let it be, something shifts quietly within. That's awakening, not loud, not grand, just a deep softening of the heart. So wherever you are, whatever you're holding, I hope you give yourself permission to let go, just a little. To feel the peace that comes when you stop fighting what is. To notice that maybe, just maybe, this moment, with all its imperfections, its tiny cracks, its raw edges, is enough. And if you've been walking with me through these reflections, thank you. Truly, it means more than you know. This space, this quiet time we share, it's a kind of rebirth too. Every conversation, every breath, every pause between words, it's all part of this journey home to yourself. So if these words have touched something in you, if they've reminded you that peace is possible even in the middle of all this living, I'd love for you to stay connected. Subscribe if you haven't already. Not because you need another voice telling you what to do, but because maybe together we can keep remembering what we already know deep down. That life is precious, that change is not the enemy, and that every ending holds a seed of a new beginning. So breathe, let it all be, and remember, you are not who you were yesterday, and that's a beautiful thing, because in this breath, this moment, you are being born again.